If you're listening to this late at night, alone, I need you to understand something first. I'm not telling this story for entertainment. I'm telling it because whatever followed me is still out there, and because silence feels worse than what happens when I speak. If stories like this crawl under your skin, then stay there, subscribe now, but understand that once you hear this, you don't get to unknow it. I don't know how much time I have left to explain this clearly, so I'm gonna start where it stopped feeling like my life belonged to me. If you're reading this because you've been hearing things you can't explain, low sounds, like pressure in your head, like something humming just below hearing, stop. Don't finish this. Shut it off. Because once you recognize it, it gets easier for it to recognize you back. I never believed in hidden meanings, codes, signals meant for certain people. I'm a practical person. I trust patterns only when they behave. That's what makes this worse. This wasn't chaos. It was structured, intentional, patient. Something contacted me. Not in words, not at first. It started as a sensation, like being gently pulled toward a thought that wasn't mine, like when you wake up from a dream, and the feeling lingers but the images don't. Except this didn't fade, it settled. I didn't tell anyone. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, too much caffeine. I told myself that because the alternative was admitting that something had reached across a distance I couldn't measure and pressed its attention directly against my mind. I know how insane that sounds. I would have laughed too, but I'm not laughing anymore. And I'm writing this now because the calls are getting clearer, and I'm scared that soon I won't remember which thoughts started with me. At the time, I was living alone in a small coastal town in Washington. Nothing remote enough to be creepy, nothing big enough to matter. The kind of place where fog rolls in slow and polite, and the ocean feels like background noise instead of a threat. My apartment sat above a closed bait shop. Every morning smelled like salt, old wood, and diesel from the harbor. I liked routines. Same coffee mug, same chair, same radio station. Low talk, sports, weather updates. Familiar noise keeps the mind anchored. The first odd thing was the radio. It didn't break, it didn't glitch, it just lingered. I'd turn it off before bed, but when I woke up it would be on again. Not loud, not static, just voices talking about nothing important. Always mid-sentence, like I'd walked into a room where people had been speaking for a long time without me. I checked the wiring, bought a new radio. Same thing. I told myself I was forgetting to turn it off. The second thing was the sound. It came at night after the foghorn stopped and the harbor went still. A low vibration, not audible exactly, more like pressure behind the eyes, like standing too close to heavy machinery. I'd feel it more than hear it. The weird part was how calm it made me. Not relaxed, focused, as if my thoughts were being gently arranged into cleaner lines. I slept deeper, dreamed less, woke up with strange clarity, like I'd been thinking all night without remembering the work. I started writing things down. Numbers, shapes, sequences that made sense while I was writing them, and slipped away when I looked back. I told myself it was subconscious pattern making, the brain entertaining itself. That explanation worked until I started finding notes I didn't remember writing. Same handwriting, same paper, but the timing was wrong. One note was dated 3 hours before I woke up. Another was folded into my jacket pocket, ink still fresh. After a day, I clearly remembered not leaving the apartment. That's when unease crept in. Quiet, reasonable, like a friend suggesting you lock the door even though nothing's happened yet. I checked my carbon monoxide detector. Bought a new one anyway. Had a doctor run tests. Everything came back normal, too normal. The dreams started after that. I wouldn't call them nightmares. There were no monsters, no violence, just scale, endless black water, vast slow movement beneath it. The feeling of being observed, not watched, but evaluated. I'd wake up with my heart steady, breathing calm, but my body soaked in sweat like it had been preparing to run. One morning I woke up with a word on my tongue. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew how it felt to say it. I won't write it here. The sound followed me outside. Not constantly, not aggressively. Just enough that once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it. At the grocery store, in my car, at work. Always thanked, always patient. People started repeating themselves around me. Not exactly the same words, same ideas, same phrases resurfacing in different mouths, like the town was echoing itself with a delay. One night at the bar, a man I'd never met leaned over and said, "You ever feel like the ocean is thinking?" He laughed it off before I could answer, but my stomach dropped so hard, I nearly stood up and left. It became instruction. I'd wake up knowing things I hadn't learned. Tide schedules, obscure historical dates, geometric patterns that made my head ache if I tried to ignore them. And then the radio changed. Same station, same voices, but now sometimes when they paused, just for a breath, I could swear I heard something underneath. A deeper layer, like a second broadcast using the same space. One night it said my name. Not spoken, recognized. That was the first time panic hit me hard enough that I lost time. When I came back to myself, I was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, hands shaking, the radio off and unplugged. I don't remember turning it off. That helped for a few days. Then the calls didn't need proximity anymore. The realization that broke me wasn't fear. It was certainty. I was no longer choosing when to listen. I'd catch myself staring at the same point on the wall for minutes at a time. Mind quiet, receptive, not empty, waiting, like something else was deciding when I'd be useful again. The pressure grew stronger, the patterns clearer, less suggestion, more insistence. One night while lying in bed completely awake, I felt my body relax without my permission. My breathing slowed, my thoughts flattened, and something inside me responded. That's when I understood the truth I've been avoiding writing down. This wasn't contact. It was alignment. And whatever was calling me wasn't far away. It was old, and it was waking up. I didn't sleep after that night. I laid in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked unevenly, every third rotation slightly slower than the last. I counted those rotations because counting felt like resistance, like proof I was still steering something. The pressure in my head didn't go away. It adjusted, like it had learned how much force it needed to apply without triggering panic. That scared me more than anything. I went to work anyway. Muscle memory carried me through the morning routine. Shower, coffee, keys. Outside, the fog was heavier than usual, low and thick, swallowing the streetlights even after sunrise. Sound traveled wrong in it. Far things felt intimate. At my desk, my screen was already on. I know I shut it down the night before. I always do. I remember the click, the blackout, the reflection of my face fading in the glass. But there it was, awake, cursor blinking patiently inside a blank document. No title, no timestamp, just waiting. I sat down without deciding to. My hands moved, not fast, not frantic, steady, deliberate. I typed symbols first, shapes made of angles that felt heavy in my wrists, like they carried mass. Then numbers, then words that weren't English but behaved like it, grammar without meaning, structure without translation. I knew without knowing how that this wasn't creation, it was transcription. A coworker walked past my desk and stopped. I felt him before I heard him. "Hey," he said, hesitant. "You okay?" Nothing came out. The pressure surged, not painful but commanding. A reminder. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing at my screen. "What language is that?" That was when panic hit. Pure animal panic. My heart slammed so hard it stole my breath. My hands froze mid-keystroke. The room snapped back into focus like I'd been underwater too long. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound was too loud. Heads turned. Someone laughed nervously. "I'm fine," I said, too quickly. My voice didn't sound like mine. Just didn't sleep. He nodded, unconvinced, but walked away. I left early. Didn't explain. Didn't ask permission. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. Inside, the air felt different, thicker, charged, like a storm about to break but never quite doing it. The radio was on, unplugged, low volume, no static. Just voices speaking calmly about tidal anomalies and seismic readings in places no one ever monitored closely. I didn't turn it off. I sat on the floor instead, back against the couch, staring at it like it might look back. And then I heard it clearly for the first time. not sound. Intent. A vast, slow awareness brushing against my thoughts, testing edges, applying pressure where I was weakest. I wasn't being spoken to. I was being tuned. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd thought of my family. Not missed them, not avoided thinking about them, just forgotten. Their faces felt distant, unimportant, like background details in a life that no longer centered on me. That's when the dread hit. Cold, sinking, absolute. I wasn't being attacked. I was being deprioritized. Something else mattered more now. I'm not religious, but desperation doesn't care about consistency. The words wouldn't form. My mind slid away from them like they were coated in oil. The presence pressed closer, not closer in space, but in relevance, like it was stepping into the center of my attention and gently asking me to move aside. I screamed. It came out wrong, flat, stripped of emotion, like a test signal. The pressure eased slightly. Approval. The next morning I woke up standing, not walking, not moving. Standing in my kitchen, bare feet on cold tile, both hands resting flat on the counter. The clock read 3:17 a.m. The radio was silent. The pressure was gone. For half a second, relief flooded me so hard, my knees nearly buckled. Then I saw the wall. Written across it from counter height to ceiling were symbols I recognized instantly, not because I understood them, but because my hands remembered making them. Uneven. Still wet. My stomach flipped. My mouth filled with saliva like my body was preparing to vomit or bite. I stumbled backward, slipped, caught myself on a chair. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I scrubbed at the wall with a dish towel. The markings smeared instead of fading, soaking into the paint like it wanted to be there. I checked my phone. 3 outgoing calls. No numbers listed, no duration. Just proof that something had reached outward, using me as the interface. That's when panic took over completely. I grabbed my jacket, wallet, phone, didn't even put on shoes, and ran, down the stairs, out into the fog, toward anything that wasn't that apartment. But the sound followed, stronger now, encouraging. I didn't decide where to go. My feet did. I fought it. I swear I did. I tried turning down side streets, stopping outright, digging my heels into the pavement. My body responded with nausea, vertigo, a sharp spike of pressure behind my eyes that blurred my vision until I stepped forward again. Compliance reduced discomfort. That lesson settled in fast. The fog grew denser near the water. Shapes loomed and vanished. Boats, pylons, cranes, too large to fully register in the limited visibility. I reached the end of the pier without remembering walking the last half of it. The ocean was black, still, no waves, no reflection. And beneath it I felt movement. Not rising, waiting. The pressure in my head shifted, not inward, but outward, like a door opening from my side. I understood then what I'd been preparing for. Not to receive, to announce. My mouth opened. Words came out that scraped my throat raw, syllables heavy and deliberate, vibrating in my chest like they didn't belong to air. The water responded, not dramatically, not violently. It rippled, once. Then the sound, felt more than heard, rolled through the pier, through my bones, through the marrow of me. Acknowledgement. Something immense turned its attention fully toward this point, toward me. I collapsed to my knees, hands gripping the damp wood, mind screaming while my mouth continued speaking. I felt small, not insignificant, useful, a node in something so vast it didn't register individuals, only alignment. Then, abruptly it stopped. The pressure vanished. The words cut off mid-syllable. I fell forward and blacked out. I woke up in a hospital. They said a fisherman found me unconscious near the harbor, hypothermic, dehydrated, muttering nonsense. No injuries, no drugs in my system. They let me go after 2 days. I don't live near the water anymore. I don't own a radio. I avoid patterns, avoid silence, avoid thinking too long about anything that feels bigger than me. But it doesn't matter. because sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet enough, I feel that pressure again. Familiar, waiting for me to be useful. I'm writing this now because I've started waking up with red stains on my hands again. Because I've caught myself standing, listening, without remembering how long I've been still. And because if you've read this far and felt something shift, just slightly, inside your head, then you know what I mean. Don't answer it, don't listen, and whatever you do, don't go to the water when it calls.